All right, so I have a couple of surveys here, and they are interconnected by a traverse. And I want to run a least squares adjustment on that. So I want to go over the settings real quick first on what we want to have set up. The first thing we want to do is in our survey settings, we want to have our control points set up. So what I did in this data set is anything that had a field code of CP, I brought that in as control point, and we'll look at that when we get to our field book. I have control points, and then in the adjustment defaults there, this is what it's going to use when we run the adjustment, and I want to set this over and run a least squares adjustment. And then any of these settings down here that affect the least squares adjustment, I'll want to customize those as I need. So I'm just going to accept the rest of these defaults and run a least squares adjustment. If I go over and look at my survey, in the control points first, I'm going to highlight those and go to details. It brought in 4 fixed points. And what I'm going to do to run the adjustment is, first of all, I'm going to turn on the graphics for the adjustment. And I want to highlight the fact that turning on this toggle is just turning on the graphics. Gives me error ellipses, and if I were going to do any traverses, it would show that in there. Um, and what I'm going to do now is when I right click to actually run the adjustment, I'm going to, I get the properties so I can see it's going to run a least squares adjustment type. So when I say turn on, it's actually going to start the calculation and run through the least square adjustment on all these traverse points. And in my case, I introduced a lot of error out here at the end of my project. So we'll see that when it recalculates the position of all of our traverse points or all of our intermediate setups, it's going to recalculate all the planimetric graphics, all the side shots off of those points, and redraw our graphics in the adjusted location. And once the least squares adjustment is complete, I can see the adjustments that were made to it. I can see the error was corrected that I had introduced actually, and um, it has redrawn all the graphics for me. If I want to see a report on what was done with that adjustment, I can right click on the adjustment, go to adjustment results, and I can, have several options of what to look at there. I can look at the horizontal least squares report and see what was done, and look at all the settings that were used, and let's look at a complete adjustment reports there, and I can look at all the results there.